Hey y'all. Today I'm just kind of recording a video that it's a little bit like an immediate bitching and moaning piece. There's not really a script, but I kind of know what I want to say. It's been irking me. I've been moving into my new apartment, and so I've not really been too much into the game ever since hitting 400 power level. But I've been keeping up with the news, and I've got to say I'm a little bit disappointed in the Destiny community. This has nothing to do with the power leveling. This has everything to do with sandbox balancing. Uh, power leveling, I hate it currently in the game. But the sandbox balancing actually irks me a lot more. And it's not so much how the sandbox is balanced right now, although it definitely plays into it. But it's more how the community is viewing things based off of some things that have occurred online, mainly on Twitter and Reddit. So there's this narrative being pushed currently. I mean, it's not a narrative, it's a fact. Titans have been nerfed like 90 something times, other classes not nearly as much. But due to that, fact, everyone is kind of overreacting and saying that Bungie hates Titans. Bungie hates Titans. And you know how that goes. When people say Bungie hates Titans or hates anything, then they say, therefore, that thing, whatever it is, in this case, Titans, it's bad. And I just want to tell you that's so false. Titans are the best. They're the best. Mark my words. They are the best in the game right now. And it's not even close. It's just that they are the best, and it's a fact. Let's look at it. All right. So I think a clear like line of thinking here is let's look at the things currently offered in the game, or at least offered in EdgeOfFate. Contest rating. The strat was to stack Arc Titans. Portal. The strat to farm the portal the fastest is to use Titans for a variety of different reasons. Some more for bugs that you can abuse, but Titans just have this incredible ability on numerous subclasses to just utterly slay out and kill bosses. They can do it all while not dying. Titans have become the class that on almost every subclass has either healing or damage resist or both, with near infinite uptime, infinite melees that do incredible amounts of damage, supers that can utterly nuke bosses, Arc Titan possessing a class ability that can juice up your teammates' damage and give your super back faster. And they do this all with little to no effort. Most of these builds, you don't even need an exotic to do. They just make you even more busted. Titans are nuts. Let's look at it. I'm going to ignore Stasis and Void Titan because honestly, they're just not up to par with the other subclasses. They're not bad. Like Void Titan's probably bad. Stasis is pretty good, has a really good super. But look at it. Solar Titan. You can't die. You have infinite healing. You can get crazy melee damage, infinite melees because it's a throwing hammer. You have a super that you can click and then you won't die because it just restores your health from the sunspot and then you can just slay out on enemies. And if you wanted, you could hot swap the Pyrogale and just, actually use it for boss damage, which makes it like actually in everything subclass. It can do it all. Let's look at Strand Titan. You have the classic setup here, which is still really good, but then you have Wishful Ignorance, which did get an 80% nerf. And it's still melting everything in the game because it was so out of balance. It was just so broken. And it still kind of is probably on a broken level of stuff. It's doing super damage levels of damage. And you can't die. You got Banner of War, you got Woven Nail. Like, come on. You go to Consecration, Prismatic Titan, right? You can bash it for probably being like the only build that people use on Prismatic, but still, Prismatic Titan, Consecration, is still nuking so much stuff in the game after the nerf. Sure, its damage is far lower, but it's still clearing out waves of ads in all forms of content while having almost every super that is considered the best on the Titan kit on the subclass. You get infinite damage resist, you have knockout, you have transcendence, and Titan Transcendence Grenade is just amazing. Your ability with Glacial Grenade or Shackle to just get your Dark Transcendence meter up almost to max immediately, sometimes max completely. Let's go to Arc Titan. This thing is just utterly bonkers, right? You have a more neutral gameplay with either Crest or Insurmountable. You have Bolt Charge Barricades. You have the highest DPS super in the game with Thunder Crash. And all of it's easy to use. And you have damage resist, and you have knockout. They could nerf and Gut, they could probably remove one of these subclasses from the game, and you still have 3 other ones to fall back on that will be plenty viable, if not game breaking, for the majority of content in the game. And most of these subclasses are like the meta. I'd probably say Strand, Arc, and Prismatic are like very good in probably a contest mode environment. I find myself as a Titan main startled, I'm just confused that anyone can even suggest that Titans are unloved, or at least maybe Bungie doesn't love us because they keep nerfing us, but they're failing miserably if they've nerfed us 90 times to make Titans bad because we are just the best. Let's go over to Warlock now. Warlocks, in a lot of ways, are comparable to the ability of Titans to play the game. Right? Let's look at Warlocks. I would say that Solar Warlock is probably the best subclass in the game, bar none. They have 2 of the best supers in the game. Well of Radiance and Song of Flame are just amazing. Incinerator Snap is really good. You have a lot of build diversity with Sunbracers, you have Starfire, you have Speaker Sight, Fellwinter's Helm. There's a lot of stuff. You can even do like a Boots of the Assembler, which is actually very good right now, if you decide to mess around with it. All 4 of these aspects get a lot of use in both PvE and PvP, just depending on what you're doing. Maybe less so Icarus Dash and PvE, but even then, it's still really good. As there's some setups that actually they can actually take advantage of Icarus Dash. You have Phoenix Dive and Healing Rift, 2 of the best class abilities in the game. All right. Healing Grenade, amazing. Fusion Grenade's amazing. Solar Grenade's amazing. These are probably the best 3 grenades on the Solar subclass kit for all 3 subclasses, or for all 3 classes outside of maybe Trip Mines on Hunter. And Solar Warlock takes advantage of them to the greatest extent of all 3 classes. I know Ashen Wake is getting something on Titan right now, but even then, Starfire just does so much damage with Fusion Grenades, and you have so much high uptime. So, Solar Warlocks, they are perfectly fine. What about the other subclasses? Prismatic, a lot of build diversity as well. The 2 popular builds right now are probably the Slide Melee setup and the Turret setup. Both of these are insane. Probably top 5, top 10 best builds in the game. And I'd probably say that Prismatic is in a really good spot. Not to mention, they have a decent cast of supers here. And the aspects are all fairly strong, like all of them. Let's look at Arc Warlock. Arc Warlock. If you look at Arc Warlock, the subclass is very strong, and you have pretty much infinite supers no matter the setup you use. You have Amplified, which is just free DR. Ionic Traces are busted. Arc Grenade's already really good on all 3 classes. Arc Warlock takes advantage of it pretty well, although, it's not the main reason you use it. You have really good ad control with blinding. So Arc Warlock is in a really good spot as well. I would say for more ad clear based encounters, Arc Warlock is actually nuts. So you have 3 subclasses on Warlock that are comparable to the ability to slay out and stay alive that Titan offers, all while having boss utility on Solar and on Prismatic with Song of Flame. I do not understand the people on Reddit that were utterly just smashing the keyboard talking about how Warlocks are bad, how they've lost their identity. Yes, I agree. Having a million buddy builds added to the game over other builds is kind of annoying. I totally sympathize with that. I play plenty of Warlock. It was my most played class in Final Shapes year, and I'm not even a Warlock main. But that can't take away from the fact that these 3 subclasses are actually on par with some of the best offerings that Titan has. I will agree that Void Warlock is pretty rough, and the main reason has nothing to do with their kit. It has to do with the damage of Void Grenades, which are very low. But if they were to buff these grenades, it would be better. Look at Verity's Brow. It actually buffs the grenade damage. You can use Handheld Supernova. That's a key example of a way that Void Warlock actually has a use case. It's very strong. It's because it buffs the grenade damage. If they were to buff the grenade damage at base, a lot more build diversity would open up, and it would actually make Void Warlock kind of viable. Maybe a slight Nova Bomb buff, and then Void Warlock is cooking. It's not that far away from being an actually, very comparable subclass to something like an Arc, or even a Prismatic. So the 2 that I think really struggle is Stasis and Strand. Stasis, for all of its offerings with the Ice Flare and stuff, it's just not needed. Arc does enough blinding, Prismatic does enough ad control as it is. to basically nullify the need for Shadebinder. I'm curious if the Threadling buffs will do anything to Broodweaver. I think it needs it. Broodweaver is such a cool subclass, and it's a shame that very few people actually take advantage of it. It's not that great. It's okay, but it really lives and dies by the efficacy of Threadlings. So I think Warlocks are doing fairly good. As far as the identity of Warlocks, I don't understand the identity going away. Like I said, for every turret build that they're adding, they have other stuff at offering. If you're a support player, you still play plenty of support using Solar. Hell, you can even do like turret, like the Arc Soul spam for your entire team, which is a legitimate strategy that most people just don't really take advantage of, but it's actually very strong. So if you're a support guy, Warlock is still there. If you like doing, more like killing, Arc is there, Prismatic is there. Solar has options for killing. Void has the Verity setup. If you just like ability spam, Arc Warlock has it all. That's for like the spell casting people. And then yes, they have the summoner build like buddy stuff that they've been adding over the course of the last few years, and they have a full-on summoning subclass where you summon Threadlings. So overall, I don't agree with the Warlock identity being gutted. If anything, all they've done is just expand the scope of the Warlock identity beyond what it was. That's all it is. Titans still are the melee class, but now they're expanding it. They're giving Bolt Charge Barricade. That's cool. That's a different way of playing. And Warlocks have been getting that for years. So yes, if your take is that they've lost the identity, it's probably because the identity that you're used to is not being expanded upon, but it's still there. It's still in the game. And they do expand on it every so often. It's just that currently turrets are kind of the way. And I do think that's going to slow down. Now, Bungie did respond to this feedback by saying that they are going to be buffing Warlocks over the course of the Year of Prophecy. I am totally down for that. Give them buffs. Buff Empowering Rift like you're doing. Buff a bunch of other stuff. Go for it. I'm glad you guys are getting it. But at the same time, just realize that they're responding to your feedback, and the feedback is very much skewed when in reality, Warlocks are in a very good place. They just need a couple of tunings. They don't need anything major. I think maybe like if they wanted to add a super at some point to the Stasis subclass, that would be nice. If they wanted to expand the scope of Stasis, that'd be nice. But Strand and Void are very close to actually being a very strong subclass. Really, Stasis Warlock is the only one that actually needs some incredible tuning. So I'm looking at this, and Titans, 90 nerfs, they're bad. Not true, they're the best in the game. Warlocks, they're bad. They lost their identity. Not true, they just expanded the scope of your identity, and you still have plenty of offerings. Endgame players play Titan and Warlock for this exact reason. What about Hunters? Because I've now covered Hunters and all that stuff, but Warlocks and Titans, but I've not really covered Hunters, and there's a reason. And this is kind of the point of the video. Now, I want to say this. I am not a Hunter main. It is my least played subclass or class by a landslide. I did have a period of time where I ran Hunter for low man content, and I ran Hunter for, during Beyond Light, because I just kind of enjoyed Omnioculus for that entire year. But Hunters, they're in the worst spot. People are giving all this attention to Warlocks, and they're overhyping the nerfs to Titan. My fear is that these two guys, Titan and Warlock, are going to get a bunch of positive changes to their kits that make them even stronger than they already are, and Hunters are going to be left out, which is really sad because they truly are the worst. Now, I want to go ahead and get rid of this narrative right now. There's two things I want to highlight. First one, people that are saying that Hunters were busted in Final Shape. Yes, you are correct, but for all the wrong reasons, most likely. Hunters were not busted. There was no part of their kit built into their subclasses that was busted. Not a single iota of it. What was actually busted was the fact that Still Hunt came into the game. A weapon, not any part of the Hunter kit, a part of anyone's kit. Hunters just happened to have a really cool interaction with Celestial. You could clear contest mode most likely using a spread setup of Titan, Warlock, Hunter. But everyone used Hunter on contest mode because you could take advantage of machine guns for ad clear while having an easy damage output using Still Hunt. Ever since they nerfed Still Hunt's interaction, hunters have not gotten nearly as much use. In fact, I'd say they get the least use out of all the subclasses, or just classes. And there's a lot of reasonings. So let's go and look at this real quick. Titans. Every single build in the game for Titan has a very strong use case for their grenade, and their melee does a lot of damage, and they have a bunch of super uptime. Warlocks, they have a use case for their melee, and their grenade does a lot of damage, and all of their supers are either decent or really good. Hunters, their strength comes from the effects garnered by their abilities, not the actual potency of their abilities. There is a couple of exceptions that I'm going to highlight to that, but they are far and few between. So, Prismatic Hunter is about the only subclass I would recommend any hunter to run. Why? The strongest parts of the Void subclass of Hunter, which is probably the strongest of the pure subclasses, is the fact that you have a really high invisibility uptime, and you have Deadfall Tether. That is really the strength of Void Hunter. And because of that, Void Hunter is a solid subclass. I would say it's on par with the likes of Solar Titan, Arc Warlock. However, there is no reason to use this because both Invis, through Stylish Executioner, which has perfect synergy with almost every meta setup in the game for Prismatic Hunter, offers near infinite uptime on your Invis. Not to mention it interacts with subclass perks on weapons, meaning that your weapon kills can make you go Invis. You also have access to Deadfall. This mitigates the need for Void Hunter substantially. Solar Hunter. The best part of the Solar Hunter kit is Celestial Nighthawk. Or Marksman, I guess, if you want to be more specific. This is offered on Prismatic as well with a far greater neutral game, which is something that Solar Hunter really struggles with. If we go ahead and look at Arc Hunter, this could be a good subclass. It is in a Warlock Void kind of scenario where it needs a buff to something. It needs a buff to believe it or not, to the base damage of the melee. I'm not talking about buffing its interaction with Liar's Handshake. No, the base damage of the melee needs to go up. Why? I'll tell you why. In harder content, you have to make the choice between using an exotic to buff your melee damage, thus sacrificing the best part of the kit, Gathering Storm, its damage. Or you have to boost the damage of Gathering Storm using Star Eaters and thus sacrifice your ability to actually do damage with the Combo Blow melee. There are some cool setups with Tempest Strike or Ascension on here, but none of it is even comparable to what's on offering on Void and Prismatic, mainly on Prismatic. Arc Hunter only survives because Gathering Storm is not found on Prismatic Hunter. And even then, there is rarely a time when Gathering Storm is the play. Strand Hunter, its best offering, is probably its ability to use Threaded Spike and Grappling Melee. Silk Strike is also a nice super for more ad clear scenarios. You could also take advantage of the Beyblade build. The worst part, though, is that Beyblade is not needed for ad clear. There are far better ad clear builds found on Titan and Warlock pretty much across every setup. Furthermore, Threaded Spike is found on Prismatic. Grapple is found on Prismatic, and Silk Strike is found on Prismatic. If you wanted Woven Nail, you can find that on Prismatic too if you decide to rock Silk Strike. Finally, Stasis Hunter. This one is probably one of the more egregious cases. Its best setup is using an exotic helmet that gives you a feedback loop for Withering Blade. Without it, it's really hard to spam this melee. It also lost its utility against unstoppable champions, making this an even worse pick for endgame content that has champions. Silence and Squall, while a decent ad clear super, is found on Prismatic. What does this all mean? It means that you could realistically remove every subclass in the game for Hunter and only keep Prismatic, and you probably wouldn't tell the difference. Why? Because no one plays the other subclasses that often, at least in endgame. Everyone's rocking Prismatic. They're doing a dodge roll build with Combo Blow, or they're doing a Threaded Spike, Grapple Grenade, Ascension type setup. That's all they're doing. They're juicing up their damage resist so they can do like good damage with combo blow, or so they can do no damage but keep severing targets and stay invisible with the threaded spike setup. Now, there was another case that I want to talk about hunters. We already mentioned that prismatic is quite good, but a lot of people pretty much say the same thing to me, and they're like, well, hunters they're the melee class now. They do the most melee. Stop talking. Stop talking. No one cares if you can dodge around the map and do a combo blow. It is really good. But the bigger issue is people are talking about the grapple combo blow that you can do to utterly nuke raid bosses, or just any boss for that matter. Yes, I admit, it is completely busted. It is so busted. But might I also say this? That is what I consider a goober strat. I call these things goober strats. I'll give you another example of one. Shield bashing a boss. Using Titan. And Worm Gods. Back in the day, you could shield a boss to death using your shoulder charge, and you could nuke a boss. If you set up all the stuff using Tractor, getting up your Worm God stacks, all that stuff. That is a goober strategy. That's the clear definition of one. Grapple is 100% a goober strategy. This is something that is an interaction that is utterly game breaking, that will not last. It will stay out of the game probably by the next contest mode. If it is not, it'll be disabled. That's just how it is. So in the pinnacle of content, you will not be using this goober strategy, either because Bungie removes it, it's not feasible, or Bungie disables it. So I do not believe that the grapple combo blow should even be in the discussion of hunters being meta. It shouldn't be. Now, let's talk about overall the state of these three classes and why I'm very not happy with a lot of the narratives that the Reddit and Twitter community are pushing, and some of the responses from Bungie. Titans are busted. Yet people are talking about the 90 nerfs that they've received as if it even matters. That is old news. They have been nerfed 90 times. Sure, they'll probably continue to get nerfed. And that's because they literally need to be nerfed to be in line with these guys, or these guys need to be buffed. They don't hate Titans. It just so happens that every time Titans get something new to their kit, they launch it completely overtuned, or the player base finds a way to abuse it. Warlocks will always be useful just because Well of Radiance and now Song of Flame is in the game, as well as just their other use cases of utility, ammo generation, healing, all that stuff. You know, and even if they were to nerf all that, Warlocks still have healing rifts, even though they're not nearly as good as the other stuff. I can almost promise you, if all this other stuff wasn't in the game, people would at least use healing rifts. Warlocks are just fine, right? I'm glad you guys are getting buffs, though. Don't let that take away. I do believe that, you know, some of these buffs, if they are geared towards Void, Strand, and Stasis, I'm totally fine with that. But overall, these two guys are good, and just like, it feels like hunters are on the back burner. I'm not even a hunter main, and I'm saying this. I recognize it. I played hunter in EdgeOfFate a little bit. I'm not a fan. I'm really not a fan of what hunter has become. And I'll tell you, the one redeeming factor that hunters have always had, they've always had this, right? They've always had it, is they were like, okay, my neutral game sucks, but at least I can nuke a boss. And yes, you guys can still do good boss damage, but let me just scroll my mouse up a little bit. What am I wearing right there? Oh, Curious of the Falling Star? What can I do on Arc? Oh, I can put my barricade down. Those two things have nullified the need for hunters in 95% of encounters. The only time hunters might still be better is on the Witness. That's kind of where we're at. You need a very unique bosses 2 miles away scenario for hunters to be better than Titans in the boss damage department. That's a rare case. Right? So what does this look like long term? Well, I totally foresee, right, after Sundered Doctrine and after EdgeOfFate, now that we've gone 2 contest modes, with hunters really not having a use case beyond making orbs for the other 2 classes, now that we've kind of been there for 2 contest modes, with no announcement of buffs to hunters. In fact, we're getting announced that buffs are coming to warlocks, and the community is highlighting that titans have been nerfed, even though it doesn't matter, that hunters are likely not going to get buffs. And these guys might actually get buffs. We know this guy is. We don't know about this guy, but it could happen because Bungie does actually do things based off community feedback, even if we don't like how they do it. And I think that on the next contest mode, maybe not for the epic raid, but maybe for renegades, we might see a scenario where the majority of the teams that clear contest mode in the top 100 or get like really good placements, we might see the top majority of these teams literally not have a hunter at all. I could totally foresee a situation where the goober strategy of grapple combo blow is completely disabled in contest mode, however they decide to do it, which imagine if they decide to disable combo blow or grapple grenades. You know, that's going to make every hunter mad, and then no one's going to use hunter in contest mode, right? I could see a situation where because of how the community is reacting to the state of a couple falling behind subclasses on Warlock and the dominance of Titans, yet they're being nerfed, I could totally see this resulting in a case where hunters don't get used at the highest level. Yes, your average Joe playing with Thunderlord. Ironic, since Thunderlord's literally the meta right now for, well, I guess, Outbreak too. But I could see where your average Joe playing the Portal is like, I don't know, I'm playing Hunter and it feels really powerful. I could totally see that being like a reply to this. But might I also say, I can rock, I don't know, a crop top and a 4 Loco as my build, and I would shit on the Portal. I could do that in the normal raid. Okay? But on the higher end contest mode, maybe mythic content, where you are actively at a huge disadvantage to the enemies, the gap widens. And this guy is still nuking things at the highest level of content. He's still playing consistent. This guy has a lot of utility, and he makes the team not die. And this guy stands there with his 4 Loco and with his crop top, like a washed up country guy. All right, that's the real situation that we could be approaching for hunters, and if I would argue that we might already be there in a lot of ways. So overall, TLDR, if you're looking for, because I know this is very much bitchy, ranty, like unscripted. If you're looking for kind of my synopsis of how things are going, we're really drifting in the point where most people, I think, are drifting towards playing Titan and Warlock now, whereas previously it was like dominated by Hunter gamers. These people are having very skewed opinions on what the Hunter offerings actually are, and they're becoming more biased towards Titans and Warlocks because they're playing them more often. And we're going to keep getting feedback that Titans and Warlocks are missing something in their kit without actually getting any positive or negative feedback towards Hunters that they actually need the most. And that's really sad because I gotta say, playing the raid in Edge of Fate, it's really, really sad that I have actually, in the last like 4 or 5 runs of like tier like 3-4 feet clears, we have had 0 hunters on our team. Not one hunter, because it's a disadvantage to have one. It's a disadvantage. It's really sad, right? Thunder Crash is just so good. And it's so easy to use. Anyone that says, but you have to get close to the boss, shut up. Shut up. You're throwing if you die. You have built-in DR when you get out of the Thunder Crash. Hunters have to hit a crit. You know how annoying that shit is if you're dealing with like a Wyvern boss? Or maybe like, let's say in like Renegades, we get like a Subjugator boss and the dude's fast as fuck and you actually have to hit your crit, right? Like, come on. You have to walk out of the Well of Radiance to use your super. To get full damage on Celestial, you have to walk out, proc Radiant, and then shoot it, and then go back in the well. Titans, you just click and win, right? So, I really don't know what else to say. I'm just kind of sick of seeing people talk about how some classes are not loved by Bungie. They treat every class the same in terms of love. They just respond to feedback. And if the feedback is that Titans are getting nerfed all the time, stop nerfing them. They're going to look at that and they might actually give some positive changes. They already did that with Warlock. Why can't it happen with Titan? That's my fear, is that Titans are just going to accelerate to godhood if they're not already there. And Warlocks are going to keep getting buffs, and Hunters are not going to follow suit. Like I said, if they want to buff Titan and Warlock, I'm fine, especially Warlock. But don't act like those classes are the people that the classes that need buffs. They don't. Hunters need them. I'm not a Hunter main, and I'm saying that they need them. That's my TLDR. Buff Hunters, please. Buff Hunters. I want to play Hunter again. I really haven't enjoyed Hunter since like pretty much The Witness, and before that probably Beyond Light. And I would love to play Hunter again, but I just have no need to play Hunter. There's absolutely no need for me to play Hunter. I'm done yapping. Cool. Enjoy the game if you're still playing, if anyone's playing. Okay. Bye.